And he couldn't believe this order. Make a cup of tea when we're surrounded by Japanese troops at war, outnumbered, about to die. How can you think of having a cup of tea?
What will you do when your life turns upside down and everything falls apart? This is a story about how to face the difficult phases of life.
He was a soldier in Burma during the Second World War. This was a fellow school teacher. In the 1 year I was a school teacher, this guy told me this story. He was very old, about to retire, because he had been drafted into the British Army during the Second World War and sent to Burma to fight Japanese. And he wasn't a military man. He was like just a school teacher. Everybody had to join up in those days. So he found himself fighting a war in his foreign country, which he didn't really understand, with real bullets, and he was very, very afraid. And what happened, one day he told me that his fear reached its peak when he was out on patrol in the jungles with a small group of fellow British soldiers. And the captain, or rather scout, came back to tell him the news that they had stumbled into a huge number of Japanese troops. They were vastly outnumbered, and now they were surrounded. And there was no way out. He thought he was going to die. This was war. Surrounded by the enemy, outnumbered, about to die. Now, those of you who've ever known people who've fought in wars or battles, you'll know from just the tales of soldiers that no one ever knows who's going to be the hero and who's going to be the coward. These big, strong guys, sometimes in those terrible situations, they just fall apart. Where these little guys, you never think will be the hero, stand up for the occasion, and they become tall. They're the heroes. And this was this guy. He said, he had all this great heroism coming through his system. He decided to be the hero. He told the captain, let's fight our way out. The chances of anyone surviving is zero. But who knows, sometimes somebody might survive. They certainly survive in the movies. But against all the odds. Who knows? And anyway, even if we do all die, we take some of the enemy with us into death. That's the heroic thing to do. That's what real men do. So he wanted to fight his way out. But his captain said, no, we will not fight our way out. That's an order. And they had to follow that order. Instead, said the captain, I order you to all sit down and make a cup of tea. And I often say at this point, it was the British Army after all. And he couldn't believe this order. Make a cup of tea when we're surrounded by Japanese troops at war, outnumbered, about to die. How can you think of having a cup of tea? But an order was an order. And they had to follow it. He thought this was the craziest thing he'd ever done in his whole life. But it was to save his life. Because what happened, by the time, even before they'd made their cup of tea, the scout came back, whispered something in the captain's ear, and the captain got all the troops together and said, the scout has said, the enemy has moved. There's a way through. Put your stuff away quickly. We can crawl through this gap and all escape. And of course they all did, which is why he could tell the story. And he said he'd owed his life, not just once, but many times, to the wisdom of that captain. When there's nothing to do, when you're surrounded and about to die, what should you do? Sit down and have a cup of tea. If you prefer coffee, coffee will do. I don't care. You sit down and enjoy some honey, because you know that things change. The surrounding army never stays still. They move. And when they move, if you have a scout called mindfulness, awareness, it will see gaps in the surrounding forces. It will see a way through which wasn't there before, a way to escape. And if you've waited, you'll find that gap and you will escape. The trouble with most people, when surrounded by the enemy, about to die, when things are really going wrong, we just lose it. We get upset, we get angry, we get depressed. We don't know how to have a cup of tea and enjoy ourselves just before we're about to die. And then we find we don't die. We enjoy ourselves, we wait, situation changes, and then we can make our move and escape with our life. He said later on he had cancer, terminal cancer. He thought he was about to die. He remembered that story about when he was a soldier, surrounded by the enemy, no hope, by these tumors or whatever else he had. He didn't tell me what cancer it was. And what did he do? just relaxed and had a cup of tea. And didn't worry about anything. That's what he learns in the jungles of Burma. Maybe because he didn't worry, because he had tea. And I know that tea has lots of T cells, and T cells are supposed to attack us. Where's tea? No T cells. Okay, I'm not a doctor, I'm a medicine man. You doctors are going crazy. But no, he had a cup of tea, just relaxed. And because he didn't worry, the cancer vanished. He saved his life. He found a way through. And that's brilliant advice for any of you who are really, again, in big trouble. Surrounded by the enemy, you can't find any way out whatsoever. You're really in big trouble. Grief because someone has died is very close to you and you just can't know how you're going to live another day. Or, financial troubles, someone you love very, very much has left you, they've dumped you and you don't know what to do. What to do? Surrounded by the enemy, suffering on all sides, death even worse. What to do is sit down and have a cup of tea. Relax, knowing that the future is unexpected, it always changes. And if you know how to deal with this, you'll be ready. Ready and waiting for when there is something to do. And there you are, someone's calling you up, telling you what to do. You waited long enough. So this is how we deal with those big problems. And when it is something to do, then you're ready. Which is why in brief, when there's nothing to do, then do nothing. Rest and enjoy yourself. That is enjoying the honeys, which are always there. We miss so much joy in life because we're worried so much about the future, about what might go wrong. Do you have happy times? You don't have enough because we're worried about things. If there's something you can do, yes, do something. But there's nothing you can do, just enjoy the honey. Have a cup of tea, enjoy the moment. Even though everything is going wrong, enjoy it, please. Why not? There's nothing else you can do. Not only are you keeping your mind alert, you are giving yourself energy and happiness and hope. It means you're preparing yourself to act. So when there's nothing to do, do nothing. And when there's something to do, you're ready to give it everything you've got. Even though sometimes that's with kids who misbehave. Sometimes you have to let them go. Sometimes you can't do very much, except to be there for them. When they give you a call, when they come and ask you, Mum, I now need your help. That's what it's like in life. So often there's nothing you can do. You wait. You wait until there is something you can do. And that's when you give it everything you've got. If you're worn out because you've been worrying so much, upset, and you've got so into emotional problems, how can you help others? Which is why, remember this beautiful saying, there's nothing to do, please do nothing. There's something to do, give it everything you've got.